The Multiverse. What an amazing game mode. I actually have a really interesting history with the Multiverse. For those who don't remember, I actually called the Multiverse game mode a while back. I predicted it, and that was back when we only had a very little amount of information. The only information we had about the game and that game mode was, of course, the gear system, which was announced alongside with the game, so I felt pretty good about that prediction. Single-player content is so important for fighting games, because the vast majority of people buying these games don't end up playing online, or at least not online for very long. I could go into more detail about why that is, but I've done plenty of videos on it, and every empirical number seems to suggest that's true. People buy the game, they play it for a little bit, and then they stop playing online. The short answer, though, if you don't want to go watch my videos that I've done about it, is that fighting games are very difficult to play. They also don't give you a lot of wiggle room. If you're bad at them, the game tells you. In other competitive games, you don't get told that you're bad because you're on the same team as perhaps maybe good players, and matchmaking tries to get you at a 50% win rate, even if you're not good enough to earn that, because they put you with better players on your team. So having another mode for non-competitive players to be able to go play, I think is very, very important. The entire mode requires the existence of gear, however, or at least I should say gear greatly enhances the game mode. In fact, I think gear literally only happened because of the Multiverse game mode. I think they built the Multiverse game mode and then they put in gear and not the other way around. But regardless, it's important because it gives the player a chance to not only customize their character and the way that they play the game, but it also gives them something to unlock, something to work towards, something to look forward to, which is something that I think is really important for retaining interested players. For this exact reason, I've been saying for a while now that NetherRealm would be making a massive mistake by not including the gear system in Mortal Kombat 11. Oftentimes when I said things like that publicly, I would get met with, "No, Bilbsy, the gear system is for Injustice games. Mortal Kombat has the variation system," which I suppose is one way of looking at it, but I've always thought that was a fairly one-dimensional way of viewing that. Why not have both the gear system and the variation system come together in one awesome system, allowing online players to be able to customize their character in any way they want, while simultaneously getting a variety of gameplay options. And it would also give you more depth to work with your RPG mode for offline players. If that concept sounds interesting to you, you very well could be in luck, because I actually think that's what we're gonna end up getting. Right now, the confirmed playable roster is Scorpion, Raiden, Shao Kahn, and the new character who is almost definitely playable. But we don't know anything about her because we've seen like 2 seconds of footage of her. Alright, so let's look at the designs we have so far for each character. In this image, we see a very armored, almost metal texture on Scorpion. In this next image, however, he is no longer armored in the same way. Most people pass this off as a possible costume, but why would they show off a costume before the release of the game? More specifically, a costume that, as far as I'm aware, doesn't reference any prior design of Scorpion. Not just before the release of the game, by the way, but also as the first piece of marketing material. I think this is our first look at the gear system, and I think that's pretty fair to say. Also, in the trailer, if we try to take away some gameplay clues here, we can see that Scorpion uses a lot of regular hand-to-hand moves and occasionally incorporates his sword. This is possibly one variation, because the other Scorpion that pops up later on immediately jumps into some Hellfire-type moves, which could be, of course, the Hellfire variation, or at least a new take on the Hellfire variation, focused on the more supernatural side of Scorpion. Let's look at Raiden now. At the start of the trailer, he uses a lot of hand-to-hand combat moves, focusing on his Thunder ability. He ends up eventually picking up this weapon from a body. This weapon could be his second variation, but more than likely it's just some interactable. However, the second weapon that Raiden just summons into existence does feel like a second variation, using possibly a bow staff, which would be pretty awesome. Moving on to Shao Kahn, the first design we've seen for him includes this arm thing, which kind of looks like Onaga's hand, but regardless, it's not very important for the conversation, so we'll just move on. He has that arm there in that design, but in this design that we saw leaked from I think the Italian version of GameStop, we see that, of course, he has this big mallet. So what does all of this mean exactly? I personally think that what's happening here is actually much clearer than it may seem on face value. I think what we're seeing here is both gear and variations returning into one system. We've seen Scorpion use 2 variations, one sword-based and one fire-based. We've seen Raiden use 2 variations, one lightning and one staff-based, although that could possibly be 3 variations if you count this halberd thing, but again, I think that was just an interactable. We've also seen Shao Kahn use 2 variations theoretically, with this dragon hand and this big hammer. It's possible I'm reading way too much into this information, but with every character besides the brand new one, of which we've seen basically nothing, using two different fighting styles in the limited amount of footage we have of them, I feel like it's pretty fair to assume that both the gear system, because again, their designs are very different, and the variation system, because again, their weapon is significantly different, or their fighting style is significantly different, are both returning in Mortal Kombat 11. In Injustice 2, there was an item that you could collect for each character that was directly tied to their trait button. With that being the case, I think we could see a similar option inside of Mortal Kombat 11. The dragon hand for Shao Kahn could be tied to one of his variations, and you could of course select the hammer to switch variations, and there would be all these different types of hammers and different types of dragon hands that you could collect to kind of visually customize Shao Kahn. And of course, stat customize him as well for the Multiverse game mode. With Raiden, you could also select a different hat or pendant or something to be able to use the thunder-based moveset alongside with a little bit of customization. Alternatively, you could pick the staff to use the staff-based moveset. For Scorpion, you could pick a sword for the sword moveset and, I don't know, something else for the fire one. This is all just one big theory, and I could turn out to be entirely wrong, but I think this is the best theory we have to go off of as of now. I want to thank you so much for watching this video. I really appreciate you supporting the Mortal Kombat 11 content as I return to the NetherRealm community one video at a time. I'm still going to continue to do the content that I'm doing now, but regardless, I appreciate the support. If you could leave a like on the video, it helps other people find it, which is really important for these videos. My name has been Bilbzy, and I will see you in the next video.